Hello and welcome to another episode of Disaster Empire Quick Views. This is the podcast where we talk to innovators and thought leaders in resilience. And I have a special guest for you today. This is someone that I met a couple summers ago and I've been wanting to get onto the podcast for quite a while. So Jeff Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. Love what you're doing in your space, and hopefully we'll introduce you to some new folks today. So, hey, we're going to jump right in. And Jeff, I am excited to talk about ending boring meetings and how to build resilience. So, Jeff, thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So you have a new book entitled Lead Engaging Meetings. It's all about how to end boring meetings. What motivated you to write the book?
Well, I'm a full-time facilitator. So that means I do about 60 to 70 workshops, retreats, leadership development programs every year. And when you make a living being a facilitator, like that is one of the most important things, is that your meetings are engaging and productive. And so for me, it was an opportunity for me to share all the insights that I've gained over the years to be able to do that. Working at it full time. I used to have a career. I was at Conagra Brands for 17 years. And like most people, I spent, 80% of my day in meetings. And half of those meetings, I was thinking to myself the whole time, what could I do to get out of this meeting? Because I didn't feel like it was going anywhere. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can attest to that. And I think a lot of us, coming out of COVID, being on Zoom, right, et cetera, for the majority of our day, definitely are asking ourselves similar questions. So, but I know that kind of ending or adjusting the number of meetings is not particularly a new idea. So what in your book is new and engaging in terms of boosting productivity or making things go forward faster, smoother, and being more productive overall with our day?
Yeah, I think a lot of folks, they come into a meeting, or if they're leading a meeting, the question they always ask me is, well, how do I get people to engage? How do I get the people in the room to engage? And for me, like the fundamental thing of this book, the principle behind this book, is the law of reciprocity. And that is, if you want those people to engage, you have to work to engage them first. No one's going to engage on their own. And so, the way you set up the meeting, the way you prepare for the meeting, the way you arrange the meeting, like a lot of times if you're in the meeting thinking to yourself, wow, I wish these people weren't so quiet. I wish these people would engage. It's already too late. You've already missed a lot of the opportunity to get those people to engage. So there's a concept that I heard. I wish I remembered the gentleman's name, but there's kind of 5 points to a meeting that I think are really nice. And you kind of think of like as an arc of an experience that people have. And there's like, the first one is, it's the 5 E's. The first one is to entice. How do we get people interested and excited to come to the meeting? Then there's when they enter the room. There's another touch point right there. When they enter the room, what's the experience already communicating to them? Then there's the engage, the things that we do during the meeting. There's the exit, and the exit's really important. That's the thing people are going to remember the most. And then there's the extend. What do you do after the meeting? And so if you think about a meeting not as this discrete event, but a curve of an experience, is like you have 5 different areas where you can connect with those people to drive greater engagement in the meetings that you lead.
So Jeff, let's dive into that a little bit deeper. And thank you so much for giving that kind of arc of how we could change how we run meetings. But overall, in your opinion, what's wrong with the way that most businesses run their meetings?
Well, so you've got a lot of folks don't know what the objective is in the meeting that they're leading, right? So a lot of times it's like, well, we should all meet about that. And so we just schedule a meeting. So what's missing from this, right? So let's just play out what's going to happen. We put it on the calendar. There's no agenda. We're not precisely certain with what the objective is. We don't know what it is. We also don't know what the desired outcome is. What are we actually trying to produce? What is the question that we're trying to answer? And we're in such a rush in these meetings, we don't stop to ask any of those questions. We don't have time to answer those questions. So we just dive right in. And so what we're doing is we're relying on people who are distracted. They've got their phones. They've got their laptops. They've got the 10 other things happening in their lives. They came in hot. right at the last minute. And what we do is like, okay, we're here. So let's decide what we're going to do while we're here. But we're not going to talk about it directly. We're just going to assume everyone knows, and we'll kind of work towards an outcome. And when we get to the end, it'll be like, oh, okay, well, that's 5 minutes late. I got to get to my next meeting. If we're not done here, let's just schedule another meeting. We'll figure out what we do with that next.
Right.
And so many meetings end with, let's schedule another meeting.
Yeah.
And so like, to me, that is how most people are doing it. And there's several things you can do to help you to avoid that kind of experience. Because I think that experience is all too common for too many people.
Absolutely. And hey, this podcast, as the audience knows, is all about resilience, especially business resilience. So how can we equate ending boring meetings, leading more engaging meetings with building business resilience?
I think about resilience as being prepared for anything that's coming, right? You've got your plan, you've got your backup plan. I think what the ingredients that make a really great meeting is to have a really strong plan. You know exactly what the objective is. You know what you're trying to produce. You know how you plan on going about getting it. You might even know what story you plan to tell if you're a storyteller. That's all fantastic. The minute you get in the room and the participants give you something different, well, then you have to switch. You have to be able to improvise. And so I think there's that balance between a lot of structure, which most people don't have, discipline and structure, and then also the ability to improvise, the ability to say, okay, I don't know if that's going to get us where we want to be. So now I have to be able to flex and to adjust to what the participants need in order to continue to get us to that desired outcome. I don't know about you, but that sounds like resiliency to me.
Hey, and it is a question that I ask all of my guests. So what does resilience mean to you?
I think resilience is that, I think about it kind of more of like from a Stoic philosophy of that indifference to what the circumstances are, that it's neither good nor bad, it just is. And so how do I navigate that to continue to achieve the goals that I have? And so if something gets put in my path, to not be upset about it or not wish that it wasn't happening, but to use that as a way of getting better at what I do, to be stronger. I love the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb, right? Just that whole idea of that disruption and error makes you stronger. If you can get into a system that system actually gets better because of all those disruptions, because of that uncertainty, I find that to be a really compelling idea. And try to embody that and just in the way I approach life, that it's like, hey, it is what it is. Let's deal with what we have in front of us. Let's continue to move forward and achieve our goals.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that book too. And I'll make sure to link all of your books and that one in the show notes, because anti-fragility is a term that we're definitely talking about in our industry as it relates to all types of disruptions, and really trying to build that overall resilience. So thank you so much for raising that. And I loved your idea around resilience as well. That's a definition we haven't heard exactly put in that way yet on the podcast. So that's great. That's great. And it's the reason that we ask the question, because so many people look at it in slightly different ways. I think we're all talking about basically the same types of things, but it resonates differently with different people. So really great to hear your definition. Well, hey, you also have another great book, and I really want people to read your books. And this is the one that really resonated with me first, and it was Hard Work is Not Enough. And we were at a contingency planners meeting, and you were presenting that to the group. So can you share about that book, and why do you think resilience professionals should read it too?
I think there's kind of there's a mindset when you start out in your career. You think about all the people in your life. It's like, okay, you're starting your job. You're 18, 20, 22, something like that. And you're starting out in your job, and you ask your parents or your teachers or a mentor of some kind, and you say, well, what do I got to do to be successful? And what they will all inevitably tell you is, well, just work harder than everyone else, and you're guaranteed to be successful. If you just do that, you will be successful. And what happens is that's really great advice for the first few years of your career. But as you move up in your organization, you start developing a reputation for that. What happens is that it starts to actually work against you. And I think about it like a curve, the hard work paradox. At a certain point in your career, people are going to look at you and go, why are you working so hard? You can't just continue to achieve. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much you can get done. And you have to kind of shift gears. And when people see you and your reputation, your ability to influence them is like, I don't know, you're making this look awfully hard. It actually works against you to be such a hard worker. What you need to do at some point in your career is really start working on those soft skills. You've got all the hard skills at some point. You're 4 or 5 years in, you're the expert at what you do. And if you want to influence people, right? Like you have to work hard, but you don't want to work too hard. You also need to be an expert, but those certifications, they can only get you so far. The next bucket to increase influence is that ability to go, oh, well, I actually have to be good at influencing people, not just waiting for people to identify that, well, I'm a really hard worker, therefore I'm deserving. There's a part where it's like, no, you have to go and engage these folks. You have to have a story in the book about drinking the ants, right? That ability to adapt. And I think that applies to your audience, right? Like a buddy of mine went to Guatemala on a mission trip, and he got a glass of Tang from a hostess, and he decided, he was like, all right, this is day one of my mission trip. And he was picking out the ants and thinking, oh my gosh, what's this going to be like for the next 2 years? And then he stopped himself and was just like, wait a minute, I'm going to be here for 2 years. I can spend those 2 years picking out the ants, or I can just take it as it comes. And he slammed the Tang back and drank it and shifted his mindset for the next 2 years that he was ready for anything that came his way. Well, that's one of the things, like hard work can only do so much. Your ability to be adaptable in the room with your boss, no matter what the circumstances are, is incredibly important for your ability to influence others, right? The people who aren't willing to adjust, right? Like who are you going to give an assignment to? The person who has a hard time, they're stuck in the past, they can't adjust to new information or change, or the person who's like, I'm on it. Tell me what you need. I got it. I can do it differently. You didn't like that version? I'll come up with a new version. Great, no problem. Right? Like, which person are you going to give the opportunities to?
And I think that makes so much sense. And there's so many other good stories that you have in the book and examples. And I think it resonated so much with me because in our industry, we're definitely in a time of evolution and change. And if we keep doing things the way that we did them in the 1980s and the 1990s, it doesn't resonate today. And it certainly doesn't resonate with our leadership. And I think of it as being strategic. That's kind of the next hurdle in a way that you need to get to in your career to be, if you want to move up and you want to advance, versus being that tactical person and being known for kind of the worker ant or worker bee, if you want. And that it will only get you so far. So really so many great lessons in your book. So definitely recommend that people check that out.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like you said, like that get stuff done. Yeah. That's a reputation, right? Yeah. But like, can you be the person who's thoughtful and thinks about what are the right things to get done and develop an opinion and be able to discern the difference between what we should do and what we shouldn't do? Like that's a different level than, well, give me the task and I'll complete it.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you for that. I would love to talk to you all day, but want to see if there's anything else that you want to share with the audience that we haven't got a chance to talk about.
I'd say for me right now is the launching this book, getting it out there. My mission is to save the world from another boring and unproductive meeting. And so I'm going a lot of different ways of doing that. I've got the book, the Audible. I'm in the next few days. By the time this comes out, there'll be a digital course where I don't just read the book to you, but it accompanies the book, and it's actually me in front of the room, in front of a real audience, working on a real desired outcome. For those folks who want to check that out and learn more about how to lead an engaging meeting and then see what it looks like in action, they can just go to leadengagingmeetings.com. I'm putting all my best work out there right now.
Excellent. Well, get us those links. I think that's such a great concept, is not only give people the book, but then show them how to do it as well. Give them an example of executing on it. So thank you so much for that. Hey, sure. As we wrap today, do you have a fun fact that you want to share with the audience? It's just a way that we have on the podcast of letting people know a little bit more about you.
I was thinking about this as I think about the word resiliency, as you kind of mentioned before. I started mountain biking. So I'm 47, almost 47 next month. And I started mountain biking last year, and I entered my first race this year. And mountain biking, if you've not been mountain biking, it's one of those things where, you got a single track, you're going as fast as you can. And for whatever reason, it seems like the trees are moving. And you're kind of like, you have to be on the bike. You've got to be hold on tight, but you can't hold on too tight because then you're not responsive enough of what's coming in the trail. And the trail's always different than it was the time before, and the rocks and the trees and the stumps. And so you're trying to move as fast as possible, but you're also trying to stay as loose and relaxed as possible. So you're ready to go any direction that the bike needs you to go. And so for me, as a fun fact, I'm super into that right now. I did a race. There were people my age and older. There were kids in this race, and I was fortunate enough to win the old man category and get first place on a bike race. And I think a lot of that came down to I had ridden the track 6 or 7 times in the week beforehand, and I was prepped and I was ready to go. And I think that I think it ties into your mission and your message of that being ready for anything is incredibly important. And so a fun fact about me is I'm working on that. Out on the bike track with the kids.
That is really great. And it sounds like a perfect hobby for someone who is a facilitator, right? And I can imagine equating that to being in a room full of people and having to on the fly maybe change your approach, right? Based on your audience. So that is great. And I love that being flexible. We're definitely all about that in this space, having to deal with crisis and planning for them on an ongoing basis. So Jeff, thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
Really appreciated having you on the podcast, and hopefully we'll have you back again. Hey, Jeff, how can people connect with you if they want to learn more about what you're doing or network with you?
Absolutely. There are 3 ways. First, if you can follow me on LinkedIn. I put a lot of content out there. I probably put something out there every single day, helpful tips on leading, engaging meetings and whatnot. So LinkedIn, Jeff A. Shannon is who I am out there. You can go to jeffshannon.com for facilitation if you're looking for facilitation of strategic planning, leadership development. So jeffshannon.com, very simple. And then number 3 for the book, leadengagingmeetings.com. That's where my training is. That's where you can get free supplemental work to go along with the book. So those are the 3 ways.
Thank you so much. And we'll make sure to put those in the show notes.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.